Hello, welcome to this week's podcast. For today's topic, we are going to be talking about learning disabilities. Because with girls with Turner syndrome, there's often a high risk for learning disabilities, such as like ADHD, autism, nonverbal, and we will be talking about how it affects us.
So I think almost everyone with Turner syndrome at some point has had to deal with either 504s or IEPs. Am I right about that?
Yeah, I have an IEP for I've actually didn't go to school. I don't even know why, but I have had an IEP for speech
I
stuff.
had a 504 at my old school, but I'm not using that now.
I had an IEP throughout elementary school, but then once I got to middle and high school, it changed to a 504.
Was used to be on an IEP, but then I got switched to a 504.
Same
Yeah,
person.
I have a 504. I have a 504 plan too.
Yeah, I had an IEP in middle school in case I would need any sort of academic accommodations, but I haven't really had any problems with learning disabilities, so when I started high school, I stopped doing that, so I haven't had any plans like that since then, but I did have one back then.
I mean, I've had an IEP my entire time throughout school until I went to high school, and my high school's kind of different. We don't have anything specific. It's based on needs, so I'm not really sure what it would be called.
So basically, an IEP or a 504 plan is a list of accommodations that a school has to legally accommodate the student. Like, for example, one on mine was I could take breaks when I needed to or have extended testing time, and teachers legally had to allow me to do that or there could be troubles. So basically, it's a way for students to advocate for what they need without declining of.
Yeah,
I also had my 504, but sadly there has been some issues because not all my teachers will let me. So
Well, they're supposed to let you, Grace. So
I think it's.
So yeah, make sure to advocate for yourself if you're not getting the accommodations you need. Little PSA there.
It's a common struggle that some teachers just don't want to accommodate.
I think it's also IEPs and 504s aren't just for people who have mental disabilities. They can also be for someone who's diabetic, for example, or someone who has asthma, things like that.
Yeah, physical disabilities are a common way to get them to IEPs. I don't know how to explain it, but IEPs are different if someone wants to explain it in a better way.
IEPs tend to be more specific, and I can confirm this as someone who has both. Like, my IEP was for speech therapy, while my 504 is more allowed me to have extra time on tests and stuff. So there definitely is a difference if anyone wants to add on.
Yeah, to be honest, my middle school, it was a private school, so I'm not sure if my IEP was the same thing as your more typical IEP you might see at a public school, or it might just be my school's individual set of accommodations and how they deal with that. So.
I think I just kind of wanted to add and I think a big part of having that 504 plan is even then because of, whether it's speech or diabetes. I think another thing that we can all relate to is to help with if someone has, ADHD, which I do, I can relate to that, or anxiety. I think my 504 plan personally kind of helps with that. So I think that's also important. I just wanted to say.
Sure. My 504 definitely had helped my anxiety a lot, especially during tests. And I think we can all agree that I think most of us have anxiety.
Yeah, I do. When I was in elementary school, I struggled a lot with noise sensitivity to when I was I couldn't stand people talking over each other when it was supposed to be quiet. And so I was allowed
I hated that when that happened.
So in 5th grade I got to wear noise canceling headphones a lot of the time, and I think that was
me too. I was actually gonna bring that up. That's
one of my accommodations is I can wear headphones if I need. I don't wear them a lot, but it's helpful when it's really loud.
Yeah, part of my 504 is because I have misophonia, which is basically a severe disdain towards certain noises, and it can cause panic attacks and sometimes violent outbursts. I'm allowed to wear headphones during non-instruction time.
It's awesome that you guys got what you need, though.
Yeah, I know a lot of kids typically also, like, they have to fight to get IEPs or 504s because teachers see them as, like, barely qualifying, which sucks.
That's a funny story because my mom actually had an argument with one of my teachers about that, with like my speech therapy. Because she said actually had an argument with one of my teachers about that, with like my speech therapy.
Yeah, I think that's like there was a podcast called Teachers Off Duty. I think they got in trouble for like talking bad about kids with those accommodations. And they were like, yeah, they're barely qualifying, or saying like they're too dumb to understand what's going on.
I think, I don't know. I think that one thing especially is, I know that especially with driving,
Ooh.
and I personally just started driving with my driving instructor, right? So this man doesn't even know me, and I just find it difficult driving with this person. And so I think one of the things is that a lot of people can maybe have hard times understanding kind of like how these impact us, and it does really suck when, especially teachers or someone of authority really just doesn't, want to listen or understand, when in reality it's something that's really important to us.
Yeah, like for me, I have a thing that it's like it takes me longer to learn, and I'm forgetting what it's called right now. Give me like 1 second. Yeah, I have a slow processing disorder.
I do too.
Yeah, and so one thing is for me, I have to do a lot of outside of school studying because I just will not understand.
Same here.
So yeah, I really love getting extra time on tests because I would not be able to function without it.
Like, it was always hard for me, especially with extracurriculars, since that's like band and stuff. Like, my teacher sometimes would not think I was like trying, but I was like, I just don't get it yet. It just takes me a little bit longer, and it was always kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
Another common learning disability is what I'm going to call it, is dyslexia and dyscalculia. A lot of people with Turner syndrome have these. Dyslexia, Maddie can explain it better than I do, but this is basically dyslexia but for math. I really struggle with math. I don't have dyscalculia officially, but numbers don't make sense to my brain. So Maddie is going to explain dyslexia a little bit more.
Okay. Sophia.
I'm sorry, your texts are atrocious. You Percy Jackson ripoff.
Oh my!
Maddie's texts are actually so bad.
That's crazy.
Deciphering my poor brain has to do.
So yeah. So
love Maddie though.
I basically, the words are kind of like blurry to me almost, if that makes sense. And it makes spelling really, really hard, and sometimes it'll take me.
That did with your processing thing, it probably is even harder for you.
Yeah, it just takes me a little bit longer. But I also want to say this does not mean that people are not capable of achieving higher level math and things with
exactly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Not trying to brag here, but I do want to reassure everyone that people with TS can absolutely be strong academically. I've always been very strong academically. I did AP Calculus my senior year of high school, so
good for you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like it's impossible to be good at math when you have TS.
And even despite me having a learning disability, I'm in like college and stuff, and am doing really well at it.
No, most people.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Right, and
sorry, you go, Sophia.
You can go, Nat.
I don't know. I know one of the things is that I'm particularly, am particularly, making a choice to make to take college classes, but that doesn't really, I don't think, because you have Turner syndrome, or if you do have a learning disability, I don't think that should be any reason to not challenge yourself. You know, if it takes you longer to process something, then it takes you longer to process something. That just means that, you know, yeah, you might have to work a little bit harder, but I don't think it'll, I only think it makes someone stronger, and you, I think you can learn a lot of good skills out of it,
Right,
you
I
know.
agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. And also, don't like listen to other people when they tell you there's things you can't do. Like when I was a baby, I didn't get enough oxygen a lot of the time, so I went on my doctor's appointments for that. The doctors told my parents that if I would have been an A student like normally without all of that, now I would be lucky to be a C student. But I'm in my senior year of high school, not to brag, but I have like a 3.9 something GPA.
That's
So like
awesome,
it definitely
though.
is possible. Don't let like anything define you, because you can do whatever the heck you want.
No,
Yeah.
You know what?
See, I
yeah,
didn't.
people with
Absolutely.
TS are can do anything anyone else can do. It's just for some people it takes them a little longer. Like I know it takes longer for me to understand anything my math teacher says. Like it'll take someone 5 minutes and it takes me a half hour to understand a single thing. But
That's a
you
mood.
know, it's okay to learn differently than other people. Everyone learns different ways and different things, and people with TS are just as capable of doing higher level things. Like I am in higher level English because that's where my brain works, and other people are in higher level math, like Maddie. And it may
Right, and it's also, we are more than like capable of figuring out our own ways of things. Like I'm also planning on going to a University of California, which in context for California, we have a system of schools called the University of California, and my plan is to get into one of those schools, despite the fact that I have all the, like, a learning disability, a nonverbal learning disorder, ADHD, Turner syndrome, things like that.
And I think something I wanted to add, like especially if you have Turner syndrome or, you know, something, I know one thing, if you, I feel like if it's your choice, I think like a lot of schools or even people, like you can talk about, and I think it's good to talk about it because especially to know, for colleges to know how you like deal with these things despite, you know, what you have or don't have. I think it's to be able to work with what you have despite what might be going on. So, yeah.
I mean, for me, I've always come from a family of a lot of higher education. Like, my mom got a PhD, my dad did too, and my brother's on his way. So, I've always grown up in the expectation that I will do these things and I will go farther, even if it's harder for me. And does this mean I compare myself? Sometimes, but that doesn't mean that I am not capable. It just means it takes me longer with summer school and all these other different paths to get me there.
I think for me, I've kind of had that opposite problem. Like, I want to do better than my parents because my dad ended up getting an associate's degree, and I think my mom ended up doing that too, and they never really did anything beyond that. Like, they both only went to community college, and it's like, despite my challenges, I want to do better than they did because I have the opportunity to do better than they did.
I also wanted to say with IEPs and 5 refers, growing up, I'm gonna be completely honest, sometimes I was always compared myself to like my siblings and all of that because I felt like there was something like wrong with me because I had to have a 5 refer and had to have extended time. But now that I'm older and in college, I understand now that it's actually helped me get as far as I can. And there's no need to be ashamed on having tools to help you get to where you need to be.
Okay, so I think we're now at the point where we are like gonna take turns talking about each of our individual learning disabilities. For me, I of course have Turner syndrome and ADHD. I also have a a non-verbal learning disorder that impacts spatial awareness. Basically, I cannot visualize where I'm standing in space or where objects are in space. And for example, if there's a water bottle on the counter, I can see the water bottle. I know it's there. It's just I'm not completely aware of it and where it is in space and time.
Yeah, I think, and for me personally, I think I've always had ADD pretty much my entire life, and I think I was recently, not too long ago, diagnosed for anxiety disorder, and so now I'm finally getting on medication, and I'm trying to get a therapist for that. So, yeah.
For me, I have a processing disorder, like I said earlier. So that means for me that I process things like 10 times slower almost compared to like the average person. And I also have executive function. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. And it's like I have sometimes trouble like organizing stuff. Like right now, my room is totally a mess because of this. And I also have a speech impediment growing up.
Yeah, I have a speech impediment as well. And similar to Sophia, I struggle a lot with spatial reasoning, and I cannot count to save my life. Like, I have no rhythm. I'm in a musical right now and I play piano, and my teacher is always at me for like rhythm stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. So those are probably my two biggest things.
Speaking of piano, I used to play piano a lot when I was little, so yeah, I can kind of relate a little bit.
Yeah. Oh,
So
I also wanted to mention that, as I said earlier, I think almost all of us struggle with anxiety.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so I don't really have I haven't been diagnosed with any learning disabilities per se, but I do have anxiety. So sometimes if I'm if I'm taking a test or if I have a lot of work to do, I can just sometimes feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, so I have ADHD and sensory processing disorder, which means I hate noise. I cannot stand noise for the life of me. If there is any noise that I don't want, I am like totally like not listening, and I will like zone out and like freak out because I hate noise. And I think part of this is because of my hearing loss I had when I was little, thanks to Turner syndrome. But like, I cannot stand noise. I feel like noise is like 100 times louder for me than it is for everyone else, if that makes
Oh
sense.
my god. I agree with that. I don't have exactly sensory processing disorder. Again, I think I stated it earlier. I have misophonia. And for me in particular, it's high pitched sounds like whistling. Like, it'll cause me to disassociate and I will become nonverbal if I listen to it long enough.
For me, it's like overlapping unwanted noise. Like if multiple sounds are going on or sounds that I don't want to hear, my whole body like freezes. Like say there's
Me
music like
too.
in the kitchen and then the TV's on in one room and someone is talking in the other room. If there's one noise that I don't want to hear in that thing, I like am so pissed off.
Me too.
Like the noise has to be something I want to hear or else I'm so irritated by it.
Oh my god. For me, I think it's like I went to go visit a friend a while ago. Her family is a family of whistlers. They love to do it. And I hated it. Like, she could even tell. She was like, "Oh shit, I am so sorry." And I was like,
my mom is constantly like singing in the background sometimes because she's a musician. She loves to play guitar and sing. And then I'm just in the other room like, oh my god.
bro.
Like, I am so sick of this. I
Sometimes
cannot stand noise I don't want to hear.
sometimes I swear I hear whistling in my house, so I have to put on my noise canceling headphones and play
My noise
music
canceling headphones are my best friend.
Oh my god, yes.
let me put you all on to noise canceling headphones and loop earplugs. Oh my god, they save my life every day. All right, who else needs to share?
I think.
I mean, for me, it's literally just the slow processing. I've already talked a bunch about it, so I think I'm good.
Alright. Thank you all for listening to this episode. I hope you learned a lot about what it's like to have a learning disability and how it affects girls with Turner syndrome. Thank you for joining us today.
Bye, guys!